Zach, welcome to the Yeti Cave today. I'm Andrew.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thanks for having me. Yes. Hello, everyone listening. Yes. Hi.
Yeah. So let's just dig right into the overarching concept of beyond real. Simulation theory has been steadily growing in popular consciousness over the course of the century, mostly due to its depiction in films like The Matrix being coupled with cosmological explorations of reality being tied to concepts such as von Neumann's self-correcting code architecture and the potential eventuality of a consciousness evolving in a base reality that could generate simulated realities of similar complexity to what humans record in our own experience of space-time. Given all the different potential inspirations for a story like this, can you share what conceptual anchor points you've locked into to keep your bearings as you structure this comic? On what theories, ontological presumptions is the world of beyond real operating?
I mean, you made it sound a whole lot smarter than I make it sound, for sure. I mean, but that is a lot of the research behind this really cool idea that is gaining more fire in the mainstream than ever before. That what if we're living in a simulation, and a lot of scientists are throwing their hats into the rings to actually try to say, yeah, this could be it. We could actually be in a simulation. So I was exposed to all the same kind of stuff that you're talking about, both on the theory of if our society creates a simulation, then they create a simulation, then they create a simulation, so on and so on. Odds are we're in the middle and not at the front of the back of this ongoing snake of simulation creators. Um, and definitely I love quantum physics, and quantum physics is territory for all sorts of strange things happening that we don't quite understand, and people like to look at the glitch in the matrix and point to quantum mechanics and quantum physics. But I think while that all whet my appetite for exploring this, what I actually came into was thinking about the premise of creation. I'm thinking like, okay, so we're living in life, and life has been created for us, and we don't know why. And we don't, but clearly the simulation is intense. It's immersive. Here we are all in this simulation. And so whether it was created just to see what happens or to study or whatever, or for entertainment, we're the Truman Show in some in someone's living room somewhere, whatever it is, I thought, well, wait a minute, it's creation. Well, we know a thing about creation. We're all we have, humans are creative people. We're artistic. There's so many shades of the creative experience, and yet here we are talking about this in very scientific, rigid constructs. The Matrix kind of looks at this about very digitally, and so I kind of just that idea popped into my head of like, what if we explore this more artistically? And
Good work. You did.
Yeah. And so that's ultimately what, and then being a comic creator and working with different artists and seeing a myriad of different amazing art styles, I thought, well, one really interesting facet of this is if you were to take apart the simulation and look at all the different layers of it, so to speak, all the different skins and tones and shades, perhaps you would see all sorts of different artistic styles and rhythms and techniques and feelings and voices that all come together to make what we have. And so that was the gem that I started playing with when I came up with Beyond Real.
Yeah, you just made me think about, unfolded shapes, the topology of things when you get inside them and unpack them. But and you brought up the art, and that's where we're heading. Before we dig a bit deeper into the narrative world, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge it's so beautiful. Like, especially when things open up in such a way in issue 3, you have to carry through and read everything because it just keeps building and getting more complex and epic in scope. So you've got Fabiana Mascolo, Tony Fejzula, is that right?
Fejzula?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And they're doing the illustrations, and then you've got Jordi Belair on colors, and I've seen Hassan's name popping up in lettering a fair bit as I've been doing these interviews over the last year. You got a really good team together. How did you assemble this team? How did you?
Yeah,
you
and
get
that, and you're citing and you're citing the team on issue 1, which is an amazing team, but
Okay.
the series extrapolates, and we actually have 7 different interior artists, 2 colorists across the whole series. And then I'll come to
Cool.
Hassan and lettering
Yes.
in
Credit
a
where
moment,
credit's
which
due
is
all around.
but in terms of the interior artists, yeah, the idea from the premise was to have different artists draw different layers of the simulation. And so it is a love letter to artists, and the artwork is absolutely gorgeous. And I, as the writer, can brag, and I brag with full confidence that this book is going to be one of the most beautiful books of the year. Well, I don't know what year it is going to fall into because we're at the end of December here. So I
Yeah.
don't know if we're on,
2023
I
to
don't know.
2024.
Yeah, I
Gotcha.
don't know if we're 23 or 24, but it's going to be one of the most beautiful books in this moment in comics. And when you see first few issues, you will agree. It's breathtaking because the artists that we've gone to and brought on board are not just talented and amazing, but they are known for having a unique and indicative style. Tony
Mhm.
Fajula has such an amazing style. You might know his work from his series Forgotten Blade at TKO, but he's got this cacophony of lines that look so geometric and structured, but is so well planned and intricate and musical. It's just amazing. And then Vincenzo Riccardi, who does that issue you're talking about at issue 3,
Mhm.
where all of nature comes to
Love
life
it.
and is
So
personified
good.
as living things. It is mind blowing. And as a writer, I get to write these crazy freaking ideas like all nature comes to life and then hand it to the artist. But what they do with it is incredible. It is a rare opportunity for an artist to do these kinds of things. You don't see this kind of stuff every day in comics. There's some breathtaking stuff you see in comics, but all of this and then combined into a 5-issue miniseries where you just keep seeing the style change and another
Yeah.
artist takes the baton and says, well, here's another completely different style. I'm just looking right now at pages from another artist, Dennis Menhier, who's a new voice in comics, but a big
Okay.
visual artist who is just got this gorgeous painter style. And
Mhm. Okay.
it's so good. Liana Kangas, Jorge Corona, Luana Vecchio are all big names in comics that people might recognize. Jorge Corona did Middle West and Me Love You in the We Love You in the Dark, the Scotty Young. He's worked with a couple, and then Batgirls and a number of other amazing series.
Fertile grounds. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's so much to check out. I feel like now my reading list just expanded
yeah.
monumentally.
Liana Kangas, she said Destroy, True Celt, Nowhere Station, amazing cover artist and artist. And we have her doing both Luana Vecchio, Bolero, and Lovesick at Image.
All
Such
right.
emotional work. And so, yeah, it's just been a dream to bring all of these different artists into it and see them just shine. But Fabiana Mascolo, was the first artist. She helms the series with issue 1 with Jordi Belair, an Eisner winning colorist, coloring her work. And it's just the series opens with a very emotional, character driven sort of narrative because we're going towards visually stunning. So we start just with this character, June Ward, our
Yeah, base
protagonist.
reality.
Yeah,
What you're
and
working
and
with.
and it's so it's the first issue is just so moving and heartfelt, and this is all due to Fabiana's amazing character work and Jordy's amazing colors. And then to add insult to injury, Hassan Otsmane Elhau, which I have been saying and I'll continue to say nonstop, who deserves an Eisner nomination for his work in this series, letters, in addition to doing so much evocative and groundbreaking work just in general as a letterer and taking chances and finding fresh ways to just place balloons and direct the eye. He does that across all 7 different styles in this book, and he
Mhm.
changes style while keeping cohesion along the whole series. There are not many colorists, I mean, letterers that can pull this off and pull it off with such expertise. So it's incredible. Um,
That is worth noting. It's seamless because I didn't even think about the fact that the visual styles were changing throughout with the lettering, but it's all one letterer. I
It's
didn't think
all
about
one
that.
letterer,
Yeah.
and he's thinking about, oh, how do I do this so it doesn't change so much that you feel like it's a whole new book. So there's some connective
No, it's
tissue to
fluid.
each. Yeah, but it's so just amazing. So yeah, it's been one of the most fulfilling creative experiences of my career to bring all these artists together
Fantastic.
and to watch this experiment unfold in such a fulfilling way. So really over the moon about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I won't go into the full question before because we've covered a bunch of it already, but just in terms of working with illustrators as a writer, advice on how you communicate visual inspirations, what were the common anchor points, touchstones, and how did you give them free reign or how prescriptive did you need to be?
I think it's really important to, at the onset, convey, whether in the pages or in the discussions that I like to accompany the pages with, whether it's
Mhm.
an email exchange or a Zoom call or whatever it is, to convey the emotionality of a scene and the vision behind the scene. You know, I think that it's very easy for writers and creators to get bogged down in what's being seen and trying to tell the artist, here's what you need to draw. I sometimes think of those nuts and bolts more as examples of what could be drawn in this moment, which sounds weird to, but I like giving an artist that freedom and saying, look, essentially, this is a moment about this character and this is the experience and the and I also try to focus on which panels maybe have more visual importance. You know, I might say this is a small panel, but this is the moment where we, you know, where we take this breathtaking shot, or, you know, so I think I try to convey a lot of those kind of layers to the story and then set the artist up to make those choices.
So I have one quick addendum. The panel layout. There's so much creativity in terms of the flow and non-stat. You're not just looking at
Yeah.
six boxes on a grid. It's
No.
so creative. And was that all just their own impulse in
I
each
mean, no,
instance? Where
both. A lot of that is in the script. I mean,
oh, okay, cool.
Beyond Real is my ninth creator-owned series, and definitely in the beginning when I first
You have
started
these
out,
things
I
in mind.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like 5 or 6 It was like, is this going to be 5, 6, or 7? Oh, this is going to be a splash page, and now it was definitely in thinking of more basic terms. And as I get into this more, and as I, you know, become a more of a student of comics, the further I go, I have an appetite to take more risks in layout and try to use layout as a writer to um convey the just the story and what I want the readers to feel. And so I do a lot of times put that stuff into the script, whether it's there's a 9 panel grid where she's talking to a doctor, a therapist, and a fortune teller, and she's
Yeah,
sandwiched
yeah.
in
The
the
parallel
middle.
narratives are great. They're great.
Yeah, or, you know, things, or um sometimes when it's something like June lies on the hospital gurney and her life flashes before her eyes in these 12 different moments. That is giving a lot of freedom to Fabiana to design how we see those different moments
Mhm.
unfurl on the page. And so sometimes I'm saying, let's do this. But Fabiana and I, in issue 1, actually got on, you know, Zoom call and spent a lot of time talking about the narrative style. The story opens up with a lot of horizontal rows and a lot of panels in
Yeah.
a very staccato fashion, and we came up with that kind of together in order to create a sense of back and forth with these two characters and kind of just a timelessness to that moment. And so, yeah, trying to put into thought at every turn, you know, what is the emphasis here emotionally? What do we want the readers to feel? Do we want the readers to feel fast or slow, grand or intimate? And I try to put a lot of that into the story, and I try to convey the ideas so that, you know, if an artist is going to take liberties with the narrative, which I'm okay with, and I encourage that collaboration, come back to me and tell me, let's do more panels, let's do this instead, or what about this? It's coming from a place of, they read that I wanted that scene to be intimate, and they understand that this is a scene where the character feels small and pressured, and let's do this to make the character feel small and pressured. So
Emotional inference. Yeah.
yeah. So I like to, so I do put a lot more of that into the scripts, but then I encourage collaboration I'm not. There are writers out there that go, here's the script, and the artists pick it up, and they get beautiful results. I get my joy comes from working together and collaborating, and not coming up with the first idea or coming up with the interpretation of the script, but collaborating with an artist and releasing that meld of an idea to the reader.
Yeah. Well, I think it was really, really helpful you referring to yourself as a student in this process, because that's, I mean, entirely why I've been doing this, is to learn the difference in the way people approach the craft. And, yeah, like you said, some people just finish off, done, let it rip,
They
and then
do.
hand it off. But it's
Yeah.
it's it's nice to hear of the depth and level of consideration that you put into that process. And so, that's why I wanted to get into into the narrative depth a bit further.
Yeah.
And I mentioned, there's obviously some superficial and thematic similarities to the Wizard of Oz, and that whole idea of Joseph Campbell's hero with a thousand faces, the monomyth, that resonate in this story. So I thought you could, share a little bit about your own disciplinary background with storytelling, how you came to comics, and your favorite examples of the monomyth that you maybe like jump back to and use as specific reference points.
Yeah. I mean, I'll also say, for those of you listening who have been enjoying us talking, but maybe don't know Beyond Real in terms of the narrative summation, it's basically a struggling artist. June is in a car accident, and her lover's in a coma, and she begins to experience a strange phenomena, and ultimately comes to realize that life is a simulation. She's developed the ability to travel through the layers, and she goes on this very perilous, surrealist journey through the layers to find the creator of the simulation and hopefully rescue her lover from a coma. And along the way, she meets a couple of allies who end up joining her on her quest. And so in that regard, yeah, it's part Matrix in breaking out of the first layer of the simulation. It's part Wizard of Oz in this adventure to find the creator at the center of things, and being joined by some allies along the way. And
I'm glad you ran through it so I could avoid like any
yeah,
spoilers on my part. I wanted to make
yeah. So
sure
it's
I
very,
didn't give away
it is a
anything. So
very,
yeah, good rundown.
I mean, and I use the word adventure in the loosest terms possible, because it's got moments of adventure, it's got moments of thrills, it's got moments of action for sure, but it is so uh it's just not your typical adventure in that regard, and it takes a lot of twists and turns. And so I definitely think readers will come in, don't expect the Wizard of Oz. It mirrors the Wizard of Oz only in the sense that you have three characters on a journey to find the creator at the center of it all. But that is the key, right? That's kind of monomythic and Joseph Campbellian, and in the the hero's journey and the hero's quest, and that quest ends up becoming a quest of self-discovery, and the quest mirrors her own life and what she's been going through as an artist. And yeah, I find that dressing these very profound thematic questions I have about, are we living in a simulation? Is our life fated, or is it predetermined? Do we have free will? What is the right way to be an artist? Uh, all of these questions work better when you have a little bit of clear ground of just kind of classic myth structure underneath it all. So that's kind of where the impetus comes from there. I mean, to getting to me, I mean, I've been writing all my life. I remember being in grade school writing short stories in those cow composition manuals, and I studied playwriting and made my own little movies. And then I finally went on to get my master's at USC in film and TV writing, and
All right, cool.
pursued and I taught writing in the Philippines for a year at International Academy of Film and Television. So I've had a lot of experience learning about writing and pursuing the craft and study of writing, and spent a lot of time in Hollywood pursuing film and TV writing until I was fortunate enough to get a break in comics and fell in love with it. And In terms of my uh you know favorite kinds of classic structures and story structures, I mean, like, I always say that, like, I grew up in the Midwest in cornfields and all, and so I
Yeah,
gravitate
yeah.
towards kind of very Spielbergian kind of stories. I mean, Luke Skywalker looking off at two moons, and ET, um um God, what's the boy's name? Oh
Elliot
man,
from
Elliot.
ET. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
Elliot, looking at the cornfields and wondering what's in there, and that kind of I do kind of fall in love with those kind of dreamer characters that kind of wonder what if.
Yeah.
I
Pushing
um
through the veil, right?
yeah, pushing through the veil, and I think June is definitely a more cynical, beaten down, frustrated version of that character,
Yeah.
but I she's still willing to look past the ordinary into what could be extraordinary, and take that journey. And so I like those types of stories, and those are some of my favorites in terms of the dreamers.
Yeah.
And
I'm very excited to see how this one concludes the full arc, because it's so far, you can see it going on a, you know talking about the monument. This is a very beautiful iteration of it, and I really
thank you.
appreciated what I've seen thus far. And I wanted to ask, the next part is, how did it come to be this way? You've worked with Image, Top Cow, Dark Horse, Aftershock, Humanoids, Scout, DC. You previously published Mindset through Vault. So, can you provide a bit of insight into what led to this arrangement with Vault to pick up Beyond Real? From your perspective, what goes into an appealing publishing agreement, and getting into the business side of it, a little bit away from the creative side of it for a moment, but what sort of editorial and publishing support were they able to provide and offer, and what made it a compelling undertaking for all parties involved?
Well, I think, you know, it- there's a lot of great publishers out there, and I've worked with a lot of great publishers. I think the real importance is to find a publisher. It is like dating, and it's important to have a publisher that is in love with the project for what it is, and that has that, like, they're not just going to take it on and throw it against the wall, but they say, no, we understand what this is and we love it too, and we're going to put some energy into seeing it succeed. Definitely, that is Vault Comics. Vault is
Okay, cool.
a new publisher. They've been around for about
Right.
6 or 7 years, but actually the same amount of time that I've been creating. And um, they don't do always the down the line story. They do take chances, and they do do more risk taking stories. They're not opposed to taking a more adventurous approach, and I think in that regard they've gotten a reputation for being a bit more Vertigo, like early 2000s Vertigo, and
Yeah,
in the fact that they're willing to do more provocative, interesting stories. So in terms of me, what I'm trying to bring Vault is something in that milieu, and that's what Mindset was. It's a mind control thriller about our relationship with technology, but definitely playing with the form of comics, and Beyond Real is the same. I mean, I knew that Beyond Real was a Vault Comics. Not to say I couldn't have done it somewhere else, but Vault is a perfect fit for Beyond Real, and they pour a lot of uh, help from a marketing standpoint in terms of getting the word out. They really believe in the books. They take on a boutique slate every year, and then they put
yeah,
their
yeah.
heart behind it, and they put Adrian Wassel is the editor in chief who basically green lights the project and sees it through. And the managing editor, Dershing Helmer, uh, if they gave out Eisners for editors, deserves an Eisner, because she was basically responsible for helping me logistically handle this undertaking of 7 artists, 2 colorists, 1 letterer, everyone handing things back and forth, not issue by issue. It changes as the narrative dictates. And so, yeah, they Tim Daniel is the designer at Vault, unbelievable designer, and just brings all of these different art styles into one kind of synergy, you know, God, to use that word, like it just, everything feels, you know, he comes up with what Beyond Real is when you see the logo, when you
Yeah.
see the trade dress, when you see all these things put together. Yeah, it's great. It's
So
been a really great experience.
as a publisher, that's where you know, the way you describe it is it feels like it was packaged in house, like it's actually, you know, everyone had a hand in putting it together in a finished product.
Absolutely, a vault, and every publisher is different. There are publishers that
Yeah,
give
yeah,
you more carte blanche, that are just that don't put as much energy into it. And it's not to say that those aren't equally viable ways to make a book. You go in and you figure out what is the resources that the publisher has to offer. And I think it's really important for creators to be the central producers of their work. And
yeah, yeah.
it's
The
great at a place like
auteur
Vault because there's
of the
so much
page.
support. Yeah, but yeah, and I use the word creator, whether it's you know, an
Editor,
artist and a writer
illustrator, yeah.
collaborating, and you know, or colors, whoever is part of that that package that's taking on
Right.
everything, because there's so much more that goes into making a comic than just making the comic. There's you know, getting the word out from a marketing standpoint, retailers, conventions, variants. There's a lot, and social
Yeah.
media. There's a lot of things that go into promoting and getting the word out on a comic. And yeah, you just have to, you know, figure out what are the resources that the publisher brings, and then you build around it.
Yeah, and that's you mentioned you know, the varying tone and climate of different publishers. And I was thinking about it, you know, it's something aesthetically I can tell when I'm listening to, you know, bands from a specific record label. And I feel
Right.
like you know, I have that sort of the ear for that. And I don't know if I've quite cultivated it to be able to pick, you know, if someone covered the logo, I would always be able to pick which publisher was putting out a comic book.
No,
But
I
the way
that's
you spoke about
true.
it, I feel like you definitely have a better sense of how they all shake out, and I'm keen to
That
learn
is
more about that. That's very
That is
interesting.
true. And look, there's certain factors, like there are different editors at some of these places. You know, Dark Horse has different editors. It's more than one editor that helms a book. And so
Yeah, yeah,
those are, you know, Dark Horse is not going to have one central, but I think there are certain books that fit with Dark Horse, and there are other books that you would say, I'd be surprised that Dark Horse did that sort of book.
okay.
So
It's interesting that in some places where people will pass it around and make notes, and it's like it goes through, you know, the the
as a
workshopping
creator,
that
for
way.
example, I mean, could Dark Horse have done Beyond Real? Sure, they absolutely could have
Mhm.
done Beyond Real. But I thought Beyond Real is a better fit for a place like Vault. I have a new book with Dark Horse called Kill All Immortals, which is
Which
a,
I'm looking forward to seeing.
yeah, it's a
I've been hearing about
supernatural,
it.
high action, high energy book about immortal Vikings living present day and fighting John Wick style. Now, to me, that sounds like a Dark Horse book. If you like Hellboy and you like
Mhm.
high energy, high action, supernatural content, you like Umbrella Academy, you like these sorts of
Okay, gotcha. Yeah,
super.
yeah, yeah.
I feel like, well, if you're reading those and you're picking up the trade, and then here's Kill All Immortals, you know, it fits for me. Beyond
Right,
Real
something
fits.
appropriate to see next to it on the newsstand, if
Yeah,
that were
and
still
so
where people bought comics. But
yeah,
yeah.
so that's kind of where my brain works, and I'm
Mhm.
sure there's someone who can offer, well, this could work here and that could work here, and there's no right or wrong answers. I
Right.
only bring that up in the context of, as a creator, that's how my brain works when I'm thinking about what I want to bring to a publisher and what I'm looking for the fit. I'm thinking about how this is all subjective, how I perceive the publisher, what appetite do I get from the publisher, and then that's what I bring them, and that's, and hopefully they feel that identity that I'm bringing to it, and they respond, and that's how that dating you know, connection is made.
So obviously, Vault had a lot of faith in this book since they were willing to offer free of charge. That's what I wanted to get to. Is that's how I heard about this in the first place. Is your free of charge to retailer promotion for number one? They must have had a lot of a lot of faith in numbers two, three, four, and five. So yeah, how did that come to be?
Yeah, it's exciting initiative that Vault has just taken on. Beyond Real is only the second property, and basically there's a lot of talk about the direct market, the monthlies. I mean, graphic novels and I think comics as an industry are doing very well in some regards, but
Yeah,
retailers have not been having the best of year, and monthlies and the direct market have not been having the best of year, not
yeah,
compared to where we were experiencing uh, when we had this surprising boom during the pandemic,
yeah,
2020,
yeah.
2021, and early 22 were good years for monthly comics and for retailers. Retailers will tell you, and retailers are telling us that they're not having as good a time this year. I taking the analysis aside, we all love our comic shops and we don't want to see our comic shops hurt. And so when that happens too, comic shops turn to their tried and true stuff. So something that's like cool and surrealist, but maybe off the beaten path, like Vault Beyond Real, is not
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
get the limelight that you would want it to. And so this is a great
This
idea to say,
must sit into the limelight in this sense.
yeah, with no to say, hey, retailers, you're having a hard time, and we don't want to ask you to put on a ton of number ones on your shelf, and you take the
Mhm.
risk on that. And then do they move? Do they not move? You're left with a ton of inventory. Why don't we make this easy for you? Why don't you take 100 copies on us, and then you want to charge them? You sell them. You want to give them away with the goal of getting a bunch of your readers to subscribe to something and open up the door
Yeah, yeah.
to convert a reader to an indie comic reader who can come back for a whole another treasure trove. You do that way, you incentivize people to subscribe to the rest of the series. Whatever works for your shop. There's a lot of different ways, but let's take the risk out of the taste here, and let's give you number one. And
It
this
should
is
help your number two sales a lot
yeah,
compared to
yes.
other
Well,
books.
you would hope so. You would hope
Yeah,
so. You'd hope you get a lot of people who try it out who weren't going to try it and say, you know what, I wouldn't have read that book, but
yeah, yeah.
my retailer had a lot more because they were able to order it without risk. They didn't order 10 and then they sold out to the few people that were going to pick it up. And so it wasn't even on the shelf. I didn't even see it
Yeah.
there. I can't tell you how many times I've heard the story of I went in and it wasn't there because it was an indie book and my retailer ordered 5 or 10 or 15 and it went like that, and then it was sold out and I didn't, and then by the time it
Yeah,
came number one
missed the
came back,
rush.
yeah, by the time number one came back in, they were on to number three, and maybe I'll wait for the trade, and the moment's lost. There are going to be 50, 100 copies of Beyond Real in many stores, whether they're charging or not. It's an
Right,
opportunity
right.
for readers to
It
see
will
it.
be present on the
It
shelves.
will be present, and readers have a chance to check it out if they want to,
Yeah,
regardless
yeah.
of the pay structure for that store. So that's an opportunity for the stores and for Vault and for us. And I credit Vault entirely to this strategy. It was their idea. They did it with a natural order. Christopher Yost's adventure comic that just came out a month prior. That
Okay.
had a huge pre-order number as well, and then Beyond Real has hit over 100,000 in orders. So we
Did,
are
did they
so
wait to
excited.
see how the second issue sold of that book before saying, let's do this again? Or did they just like jump right
Actually,
to it?
no, they
Yeah,
jumped
they just said,
in.
let's give it a whirl with a couple different
Yeah,
books and see
so
if it
I'm
sticks.
part of we're all waiting to see how long-term issues 2 through 5
Yeah,
play
yeah.
out for both Unnatural Order and Beyond Real, and time will tell if the experiment works or not, but they said,
It's good
"We're part."
science to do it with more than one book. You could have just tried it with a title that doesn't work. So it's good to do it on a couple different
They
books and
said,
see how it
"We're
goes.
gonna
Yeah.
try this experiment. It helps retailers. It gets this book out there. What do you
Mhm.
think?" I said, "I'm all in." So we'll see what
Cool.
happens, but we're super excited, and it's been a really exciting past couple of weeks. We just started getting in reviews. The reviews have been extremely, kind, and people seem to be loving the book, which gives us a lot of confidence and joy to say it's out there on the shelf at your shop, and go pick it up.
Yeah, count me among them. I think it's
Yeah,
fantastic, and
thank you.
yeah, and I was we were talking before just to change to another part of what has informed your perspective. You mentioned having taught writing in the Philippines,
I did.
and I'm here at Fiji sweating steadily through the course of this interview.
Topic, yeah.
And yeah, I was just wondering, how did you end up there? How did the job come about, and what did that experience teaching add to your experience? I've been working on some similar things here in Fiji with a screenwriting course and a comic project in the Marshalls. How does it add to your perspective in useful
It
ways
was
to this day?
it was an amazing experience. I had come out of USC And for several years, I was doing all sorts of odd jobs in Hollywood. I was, which are all also interesting stories. I was a cater waiter at very fancy Hollywood parties where I carried the tray
I
around.
yeah, yeah.
I did some SAT test prep tutoring. I did some
Okay.
coverage. I was a poker dealer. So I did a lot of fun things while I was writing scripts and having
Mhm.
cool things happen with scripts that never got made.
Yeah.
That was my Hollywood story. Cool things happen with scripts, but in all that moment, it was shortly after USC that I had a friend who had gone over to this film company in the Philippines, and they were making films, but I don't know that many people were seeing these films. But there was an adjacent uh, film academy, and it was
Mhm.
one of the larger film academies in Southeast Asia, and it had teachers coming from all over the world, but a lot of teachers from Hollywood coming,
Oh,
and
cool.
they were looking for writers, and this is it had students from all over the world. I mean, students were from England, Africa, Germany, Australia, Russia. It
Wow.
was Brazil. It just never. It was just, and that was, I
Total
think, what.
crossroads. Yeah.
Yeah, that was what was most beautiful about it. I came and I taught the same writing programs that I had learned at USC, and taught
Yeah.
how to write narrative, and how to write a short film, and how to write with the basic ideas of, what makes a character, and hope and fear in a story, and just the ordinary things about writing. And I think what was really special was seeing so many different people and voices from all over the world who had come to this little island in the Philippines to learn how to use film and TV to tell stories. And it was a really, I mean, I was there was no big observation other than it was just a beautiful thing to see all of these people from all over the world making, guerrilla short films together, and loving storytelling and loving that craft. And so yeah, it was beautiful.
So that gives me a modification on the question we were talking about
Yeah.
before. Of all of the student film projects, are there any like that you can say, yes, I remember this, like this, I remember these scenes, these things stuck with me. What from that like
No,
production
it was
process
so long. It
sticks?
was a while ago. It was over a decade ago that I was doing that. And no, I don't think there was any one. It was not any one film. There was a lot of films that I kind of remember on and off, but there wasn't any.
Is there a vibe though that you got from it? Like, is there a certain like kind of school? Like, it's a literal school. Was there like we were talking about the aesthetic tone and whatnot? Did they? Was there a certain vibe that came out of the place?
No, I don't think so. I think that was what made it
It was
interesting. I
just
mean, there
all
was.
over. Okay.
Yeah, I was always surprised by the kinds of stories. I mean, these were student films. They were
Right,
they
right.
were these
All
were film.
experimental, all testing it out,
They
testing the
were
waters.
they were, and so, some would be nailing the polish, and you would go, wow, this is so polished, but work on
Mhm.
finding the heart. There'd be another one that was not polished, but man, the heart, that like, wow, the story, like the character work in this little short film is so moving. And so they were students finding their way, and they were all
Yeah,
beautiful films. And I think what was really cool is that they were collaborating with each other. I mean, we as teachers were just there to set them up for
yeah,
success, and to help them think about, okay, now think about this, now think about that. But they were the ones that were working together, and it was very international, and very beautiful. I think all my life I've loved collaboration. I actually, before that, was a theater major.
okay,
I
got it.
went yeah, I went my undergrad. I was and I for a minute I was thinking I was going to be an actor, until I realized that I was like, "Oh, that guy would be far better in this play than I would be." Like, I was a terrible actor. And I started to think more as a behind the scenes writer,
Yeah,
and that's so I quickly switched. But the theater has such a collaborative spirit of everyone coming together to put on a play, and that energy. And I find a film set has that same energy, and a film
mhm,
school definitely has that same energy. And so I come into comics with that kind of enthusiasm. Like,
yeah,
I'm not interested in everyone siloing themselves off to play their parts. I'm interested in, let's all get together and make this comic together. And I want collaboration. I want to say, hey, what about this? And I want artists to say, hey, what about that? And I want us all to be on the the meta email set together. That
Yeah. This is clearly a project that was not an introverted, insular
right.
exercise.
No,
Yeah.
Beyond Real required being comfortable with a lot of moving people coming into the tent.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It was a heavy, heavy roster even for a comic book. So yeah,
yeah.
getting towards that indie film crew size. But yeah, and I know that was a loaded question.
No,
That looking forward, you're very active. You've been doing all sorts of work. There are books, like coming out with different publishers. You've got Kill All Immortals, which I hope we can have a conversation about
love to.
when the
Yeah.
time comes. And yeah, what's next? Who are you working with on what projects? Since you mentioned collaboration being key, what are you cooking up and would
Kill
like
All
to?
Immortals is my most immediate comic, and that is Fico Ossio is an amazing artist. He did a
It
book.
looked
No,
beautiful from the preview pages.
yeah, which one? No, Kill All Immortals has only had covers out so far, so we
Yeah,
haven't
okay, so it's just the cover material. That's
yeah,
all I've
and
seen is
actually
that one page.
those covers are actually done by an amazing Mondo art kind of style artist called Oliver Barrett, who is
Different
amazing.
artists. Okay,
Yeah, Fico, we've kept all his pages under wrap, and we have not yet
cool.
revealed them. But he has been he did a series, No One Left to Fight, which was a very fun, adventure, high action, colorful comic out of Dark Horse. But he also has done a ton of DC work recently, Action Comics,
Okay.
Mr. Miracle, I think, and a couple others, and just really, really just a very I don't know, provocative and high energy, but subtle. Just so much. It's just very cinematic. It's a very cinematic style, and I love it so much. And we're working again with Jordi Belair, who's coloring the project.
Okay,
Hassan, who's
cool.
doing our letters. Tom Muller, one of the best designers in comics, doing all of our design, including the logo. And so yeah, it's been a dream to collaborate. That's the only one that I have announced. I have several more books that are in development. I mean, I'm constantly
Okay,
waking up to
under wraps
different.
for now.
Yeah. I've worked,
Yeah.
lots of artists and lots of pages coming in my inbox, but nothing that's been announced. And I don't think the next announcement will be until the very beginning of next year.
Okay, cool.
But I will say one thing that I'm excited about is my Scout book, Forever Forward, which is a time travel
Okay, cool.
adventure. That came out about a year ago, and the trade has been just delayed due to book scheduling things. But that trade is finally also
Forthcoming.
coming out in February, and so we're going to
All
start
right.
to get the word out about that. So if you have read other books, or you read Forever Forward in monthlies, and you've been waiting for the trade, that's coming soon. That's Arjuna Susini, Brad Simpson, Jim Campbell on letters for that book.
Nice. And mentioning who you're working with on forthcoming projects and existing projects, the other question is, who would you like to work with that you haven't had the opportunity to work with yet?
Oh
Who's on the
man,
wish list?
so
People you
many,
admire.
so
Yeah,
many.
I know. I figured this one could go on for a while, but I
Oh,
had to ask. I'm always curious.
there's too many.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a Hayden Sherman book. Uh, Hayden is now busy working with Scott Snyder. I love Dan Panosian's work. Skylar Patridge is
Oh yeah.
phenomenal. God, there's just so many great artists out there.
It's mind-boggling. It's like really wonderfully overwhelming how many
I
good pieces of art there are coming from artists all over the world. It just
I
blows
mean,
me away.
Dennis Camp is an amazing writer and just collaborated with the artist Stepan Moran, I believe is S. Moran, and on 20th Century Man. I mean, Moran is just amazing. What a visual feast that one is. And so, yeah, there's a ton of great artists out there. Well, what's interesting though, at this stage where I'm at now, there are doors that are open. They're not always open. You got to find the right situations and
Yeah.
the right moment in time. And that goes with the artists, like I can't tell you how many times I've had exchange with artists who would
Windows
love to.
aren't open because they're busy already, and
Yeah, they're busy. They love to work with
yeah.
me. I'd love to work with them. And the timing is not linking up. And, I've learned comics is a very long game. So a lot of times when something doesn't line up, I just say, I'll talk to you in a year or two, because we'll just keep trying until we get it to happen.
Is that also specifically having a project in mind for a specific artist, saying, I wrote this with you in mind, like I'll shelve it until later, or parking
I
certain
don't,
things and
I don't, I don't go that far, but what it
okay.
does happen is my brain is always thinking about new ideas, and
Yeah,
those
yeah.
ideas come up as little seedlings, but I don't water them until I'm ready to go. So I have this
Okay.
garden of many seedlings of ideas that are 1 or 2 page documents, and I know kind of
Mhm.
what they are, and I certainly know the style, and they could be taken and watered and transformed into a beautiful plant. But I'll say those come up independent of an artist. I don't create the
Right, yeah,
little
yeah, you're
seedlings,
just
but I do
minding
go,
them.
this seedling would be absolutely amazing for this artist, and I would love to do this with them. And can this line up? Is this artist available? Where can we put this? Is this a
And you
vault book?
wait to build it until after it's actually feasible.
Yeah, and then if I can find those things that will line up, I don't overdevelop an idea. If I don't have I develop an idea just enough to be, a 2 page or something that's clear enough that the vision is there, and I want to then make sure I find the right artist that's a perfect fit for it, and then I want to make sure I find the right publisher, and then I go from there. And so I do that. I do say to certain artists, I would love to work with you again, or I'd love to work with you for the first time. And I have
Yeah.
ideas that I think would be great for you. And I'm not going to just pitch anything. I have specific little ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Done your due diligence, thought ahead, learned their work. Yeah.
yeah. There's, and there's artists like that, I remember, I think I talked to Martin Simmons years and years ago. Maybe we were talking about for a cover or something, and then Martin blew up and, Department of Truth, and now Dracula, and just not some. So there are certain artists where, yeah, you'd love to work with someone like Martin, and will the cards align where you do something like that? I gotta wait for James Tynan to to
Yeah.
not want to work with Martin. That's never gonna happen.
Right.
So
Splitting attentions. They're talented people, and there's a lot of demand for
yeah.
creative energy
Yeah,
across
but there's a lot
yeah.
there. I mean, I, Beyond Real, to be perfectly honest, there's so many great styles in this book. I literally would love to do a book with almost any of these. I would love to do a book with Fabiana, with Tony, with Vincenzo, with Jorge, with Dennis, with Liana, with Luana. I mean, any of these, I would love to write a full miniseries for and do just with that one artist. They're all 7 of them are just outstanding.
Now it's just going to be an issue of finding the time. So,
Yeah. Yes.
but yeah,
Yeah.
is now thank you so much, Zach, for making this time today. I think we've had a
Thank you,
very
Andrew.
fruitful and enlightening conversation for me, at least. And yeah, I wanted to make sure I provided. You've mentioned a bunch of awesome work from a bunch of amazing artists. Is there anyone else you wanted to make sure that you told readers to check out, or viewers, I guess, because I this is a live
Yeah.
video.
Uh,
Yeah,
no, I
who
mean,
should check
beyond
out what?
yeah, no, first and foremost, go check out Beyond Real. We're very proud of the book. I think you're going to find it visually stunning, mind blowing, and heartfelt. And I really think you'll enjoy it. And order Kill All Immortals and Forever Forward while you're there. The trade for Forever Forward, and yeah, that's kind of what's front and center for me right now. And then I've got more series on the way. And you can find me online. I'm at Zack Caps across all platforms,
We'll
Instagram.
add the links in the description when we
Sure, there
post
you
this.
go. And
Yeah,
I got a website, ZackKaplan.com. But yeah, definitely check out Beyond Real when it's come out. I'd love to know what you think about it when you pick it up.
fantastic. Thank you very much for your time, Zach. We look forward to seeing all of your upcoming work.
Thank you,
So
Andrew.
thanks for joining us today.